We're going to go over just a little bit of simple algebra and some things you'll have to know for physics that will really be helpful. The good news is we don't have to know really complicated algebra, but we do need to understand functions, equations, and graphs and how they relate and what the numbers mean. And so one of the simplest equations we can have is just y equals mx. And that's just a straight line. Now what you'll see in physics is we're going to study two-dimensional motion in here. That's x and y. So if we're talking about just moving along the highway, then we could say, okay, we're going to move a distance x, and if we know our velocity and our time, then we can tell how far we move in a certain amount of time. For example, let's just say this was 10, we use SI units in here, so instead of miles per hour, we're going to use meters per second. Let's say we're moving at 10 meters per second, or better yet, let's do this. Let's add a 0 in there. Let me erase this. Let's say that our velocity was 100 meters per second. Now that's a number you're used to because that translates to about 60 miles per hour. So, 10 meters per second. And let's say that we do that for, I don't know, 30 seconds. Well, how far will I move moving at 60 miles per hour, which is 100 meters per second, for 30 seconds, a half a minute? Well, that's pretty simple. I multiply those together, and I'm going to get 3,000 meters because my seconds, this is in the denominator, will cancel out, and I'm left with seconds. So that is some simple algebra you'll need to know, things like that. We'll also be doing some graphs, lots of graphs, lots of data, and we'll talk about this more in class. But let's just say you have y versus x. Well, if I graph this, it's just going to be a straight line. If I graph this one right here. Now, in physics, we like to have units. For math won't have units, they'll just have the function itself, and they're interested in the function. We're actually interested in what it all means and what it can tell us. So for my y-axis, you'll notice the y variable is actually x because that's our horizontal distance we move. Now with that x, I'm going to put in parentheses here what the unit is, and that's going to be in meters. And then my x variable is going to be time. Notice that time is my x variable. Time has a unit. The SI unit for time is seconds, which we use in America. It's going to be a straight line that looks something like that, and the slope of this line, if you guys remember m is the slope, is going to be the velocity, which in this case is 100 meters per second. That's going to be the slope. So, you know, we could, if velocity was constant, we could put in some t's and get some x's and get some data points on here. But that's how so you need to know or understand, and we'll work on this in class, you need to understand that functions, in this case x equals velocity times time, can be represented by a graph, which is very powerful. And so in physics, the slope usually means something. Now when you're taking data, which we will, you'll often get some data points that don't fit exactly on the straight line. You're going to be tempted to connect the dots, but on functions you never connect the dots. You always draw something called the best fit line. You can look any of these up in your algebra book or online. A best fit line is one that kind of picks the best path that goes through the middle of the points. I'm going to teach you how to do this on your calculator. So anyway, that's just the first part. I wanted to go over some functions. There's other functions which we're going to talk about in class, but just the very basics. This is very basic things here that if you understand these, it will help you with the physics class. All right, so I'm going to stop here, and then the next video we're going to talk about triangles, and that'll be some of the harder things, and maybe squared functions. So let me stop this.